Once upon a time, in a land far away, lived a poor miller who had a beautiful daughter. The miller was a simple man, but he had one big weakness. He loved to brag. One day, the king of the land was passing by, and the miller, wanting to sound important, boasted, "I have a daughter who is so talented she can spin straw into pure gold." The king, whose eyes gleamed at the mere mention of gold, was intrigued. He commanded the miller, "Bring your daughter to my castle tomorrow. If she is as clever as you say, I will put her to the test." The next day, the miller's daughter was brought before the king. He led her to a small room, filled from floor to ceiling with straw. He gave her a spinning wheel and a reel and said, "Now get to work. If you haven't spun all this straw into gold by morning, you will pay with your life." Then he locked the door, leaving the poor girl all alone. The miller's daughter sat down and began to weep. How could she possibly spin straw into gold? It was an impossible task, and she knew her time was running out. Suddenly, the door creaked open, and a strange little man hobbled into the room. He had a long, pointy beard and mischievous, twinkling eyes. "Good evening, miller's daughter," he chirped. "Why are you crying so?" "Oh," she sobbed, "the king has ordered me to spin all this straw into gold, and I have no idea how to do it." The little man stroked his beard thoughtfully. "What will you give me," he asked, "if I spin it for you?" "My necklace," she replied quickly, taking off the pretty chain from around her neck. The little man took the necklace, sat down at the spinning wheel, and whir, 3 turns of the wheel, and the reel was full of golden thread. He worked all through the night, and by sunrise all the straw was gone, and the room was filled with spools of shimmering gold. When the king arrived, his jaw dropped in astonishment. He was overjoyed, but his greed only grew stronger. He led the miller's daughter to a much larger room, filled with even more straw. He gave her the same command: spin it all into gold by morning, or else. Once again, the girl was left alone in despair. And once again, the strange little man appeared. "What will you give me this time," he asked, "if I spin this straw into gold for you?" "The ring from my finger," she offered, her voice trembling. The little man took the ring, and again he sat at the spinning wheel. Whir, all night long the wheel spun. By morning, the entire room was piled high with glittering gold. The king was ecstatic. He couldn't believe his eyes. But still, his greed was not satisfied. He led the girl to a third, even larger hall, overflowing with straw. He declared, "Spin this into gold one last time, and if you succeed, you will become my wife and queen." He thought to himself, "She may be just a miller's daughter, but I'll never find a richer wife in all the world." As soon as the girl was alone, the little man appeared for the third time. "What will you give me to spin the gold this time?" he asked. "I have nothing left to give," she cried, her hands empty. "Then promise me this," the little man said, his eyes glinting. "When you are queen, you will give me your firstborn child." The girl was terrified, but what choice did she have? In her desperation, she agreed. The little man got to work, and by morning, a mountain of gold filled the hall. True to his word, the king married the miller's daughter, and she became the queen. A year later, a beautiful baby was born, and the queen, now happy and content, had almost forgotten about her promise and the strange little man. But one day, he appeared in her chambers. "Now," he said, "give me what you promised." The queen was horrified. She offered him all the riches of the kingdom, all the jewels and treasures she possessed, if only he would let her keep her child. "Please," she begged, "anything but my baby." The little man looked at her tears and felt a flicker of pity. "All right," he said, "I will give you a chance. You have 3 days. If you can guess my name within that time, you can keep your child." The queen stayed up all night trying to remember every name she had ever heard. She sent a messenger across the land to collect every possible name, from the common to the most unusual. The next day, the little man returned. The queen started guessing. "Is your name Casper, Melchior, Balthazar?" She went through a long list, but with every name, the little man just shook his head and said, "No, that is not my name." On the second day, she tried all the peculiar names her messenger had found. "Perhaps your name is Ribcage, or Mutton Chops, or Spindleshanks." Again, he just smiled and replied, "No, that is not my name." The queen was growing desperate. On the third and final day, her messenger returned with a strange story. He said, "As I was traveling through a deep forest, I came across a remote little hut, and there I saw a ridiculous little man hopping around a fire, singing a song. He sang, "Today I'll bake, tomorrow I'll brew. Then the queen's child comes, brand new. And lucky for me, she never know that Rumpelstiltskin is my name-o." When the queen heard this, her heart leaped with joy. She knew she had him. Soon after, the little man appeared for the last time. "Well, your majesty," he cackled, "what is my name?" The queen pretended to think. "Is your name Conrad?" "No." "Is it Harry?" "No." Then, with a confident smile, she said, "Then perhaps your name is Rumpelstiltskin?" The little man froze. His face turned red with fury. "The devil told you that! The devil told you that!" he shrieked. In his rage, he stomped his right foot so hard into the ground that it sank in up to his waist. Then, he grabbed his left foot with both hands and pulled so hard that he tore himself in two. And that was the end of the strange little man. The queen never saw him again. She lived happily ever after with the king and her beloved child, ruling wisely and never again having to spin straw into gold. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this classic fairy tale, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more stories. We'll see you next time.